Hello, Intent to Injure, and welcome back once again, this time to the Week 10 Intent to Injure recap. Austin, how you doing today, brother?
Got a little jacked original DMAA crash.
Pre-workout, for those of you who don't know.
But we've got some ice water and a throat lozenger, so we're coming.
He's on the rebound
Second
here.
win.
He's trying to catch his second win.
He's always up for the hockey podcast.
This is a great theme here, the NHL on NBC. You could just almost hear Doc Emmerich's voice.
And here we are, boys. You know, the best intro always was when most of these boys were 5 or 6 years old. They were playing in ponds in their backyard, and the story was always the same. Game 7, the puck is on my stick. No pretending tonight. And there it was.
Beautiful, yeah.
That couldn't have worked out even better. That wasn't even planned.
So, another week in the books.
Yeah.
And let's start off. I mean, we had the match of the week here, Austin. You and I, Todd Newken versus Talkett's Book Service. Todd Newken came in at 8-1. Talkett's Book Service came in at 7-2. And this was a slugfest. Respectively, we each had the high scores of Week 10, and Talkett's Book Service edging out Todd Newken, handing them their second loss of the season. The final score of 166 to 157.6, and as you can see here, the top scores for each respective team were the goaltenders: Rene for Talkett's Book Service, Bobrovsky for Todd. And off the top of my head, nice to see you kind of get Bobrovsky back playing well, because that's something you've kind of lacked so far this season.
He's won like 6 straight.
I did want to say, and I almost thought that it was going to come back. I realized that you've been doing all the matchup acquisitions throughout the course of the season, but as I looked at it on Sunday in a tight game,
5, 6.
Do you mind?
I'm counting.
You need to count out loud. Count the 6.
I'm pulling a Brody at the gym.
But it hit me on Sunday as you picked up like every player possible for the was Ryan McDonough actually on your team, or did you just pick him up for Sunday?
No, I've had him since like the week before he came back.
Oh, well, yeah, I did see that you added a couple guys.
I added Cam Talbot, who didn't play, who if he did, I would have beat you.
Right, exactly. And it hit me mainly because it was us two playing and it was finally against me. If we could go back at the start of the season and kind of change up a couple of the different like roles and the settings, I now see that 7 matchup acquisitions is definitely too much per week.
It's not enough.
I would probably, if I was resetting it today, I'd probably put it back at 3. Therefore, in a situation like yours, you would kind of have to pick and choose. You'd be handcuffed a little bit. So if you want to use, start putting in goalies, you have 3 options to do that, and if you have a couple players that get hurt during the week, then you're kind of handcuffed. So you almost have to be smart with your matchup acquisitions. Whereas 7, nobody in the league except for you, I think, has used all 7 in a week. Talon did that one week.
In a day.
Ballistic.
About in 5 minutes.
But 7's definitely too much. I wish I could have that one back. And while I'm on the topic, another thought that I was having was, and we were talking about this the other night, as far as like shootouts go, if I could have this one back, I would probably give a half point if a player scores in the shootout. Because that would be fun, because a lot of the fantasy guys do participate in the shootout. Obviously, we're dealing with the league's top players here. And it kind of sucks whenever you hear that like your guy scored a game-winning shootout goal, and you know that you're not really getting any points for that. Like, at least
was that even an option?
It was an option. I can remember us talking about it at the beginning of the year, and since the shootout goals technically don't count towards a goal, we just opted out of it. But I was thinking maybe, I don't know if a full point's too much there.
Yeah, I think that's too much. Because it's
if you think of if a shot's a quarter of a point and you score a goal in a shootout that could be a game-deciding goal, a half point maybe is not enough if you consider it in that light.
No, but you would get the half point for a game-winning goal, which is a bonus. You would get the quarter point for a shot.
I don't think that this would register. It doesn't register as the game-winning goal if you win it in a shootout. They don't give you that.
No, it's because of the team. But I think you could somehow make that possible on here.
I do not believe that you can do that. as far as the shootout goes, but you can give points towards a shootout goal. So that's something that I would definitely consider for next year as well. But just a few thoughts there. This was a slugfest. Any other comments on this game? One. I do have one.
Alain Vigneault, go fucking die. Starting Lundqvist on a back-to-back, like, this is why your team doesn't win in the playoffs. You can't let your backup goalie play against the freaking Edmonton Oilers. Like, if I'm Lundqvist, I'm actually a little pissed off. Like, you played the night before, you blew out the Canucks, because Vigneault had to, he was going to go crazy against his old team, the Canucks.
Fair enough.
They blow out the Canucks, and then on, 16 hours rest, he's like, all right, Lundqvist, go play again.
All right.
Like, what? Against the Oilers? You could put Brent in against the Oilers, and just, you could stack up sticks and gloves against the Oilers.
I agree with you in that sense that if there was ever a game where it would be a nice time to give your star goalie a little bit of rest, it would be against the Oilers. But at the same time, that's something that, and Johnston isn't as bad as Balisman was with this, but I guess ideally in back-to-back situations, that's a good time to get your backup in. But at the same time, I do get pissed off whenever we have a couple of tough games in a row and Fleury doesn't start back-to-back. That actually bothers me. The guy's 29 years old. You're paying him pretty big money. He was your a first-round pick. If Crosby and all those guys can come and play back-to-back nights, Fleury can do it every once in a while. That's one thing that bothers me. And I'm sure if you asked him, he'd say he's good.
Well, yeah, they're always going to say they're good.
But, that is the one thing that is, so I do, in a sense, kind of go back and forth on that.
But we do come up with the argument often to play devil's advocate that games in December don't matter. Games in January don't matter. It doesn't matter if you're playing the Kings or the Oilers. But it's freaking annoying when it's a back-to-back. You're on a West Coast road trip, Vigneault, Earth to Mattel.
Yeah, you could. Talbot had a shutout.
An upturned broom with a bucket for a head could beat the Oilers. I mean, and they fired their coach after getting shut out 2-0 last night. So, Henrik Lundqvist precipitated. What are you gonna do? Yeah.
What do you think?
Take the floor here. Yeah.
What do you think changing the coach is gonna do in Edmonton? Are you kidding me? It's that guy's fault.
We actually have the website up. Let's pull up the line combinations for Edmonton defense.
And let me just say, that's almost like firing. Robbie Wright got canned. He was the head coach of, and I might be wrong in this, I think a freshman team, Ringgold freshman or something along the lines. I'm probably wrong with that. But they went 0-20 last year. I'm sorry, you could have Mike Babcock coach that team. If you don't have the players to compete, it's not on the players to compete. And obviously the Oilers don't have the players to compete. So that's almost embarrassing.
It's saying Rex Ryan's fault that the Jets stink. It's
you just don't have any.
When every stat you have on offense is Geno Smith, Inc. or Int. It's not your fault. But, look at this defense. Andrew Ferentz, Jeff Petrie, Keith Ollie, Mark Faint. I don't know these people, and I follow this shit way too much. Justin Schultz, who they pay a shitload of money for, is their sixth defenseman.
Yes, he's obviously not living up to that hype. They do have a couple nice young forwards, but that's not going to be enough.
Yeah, Nikita Nikitin is on the injury list. Your goalies are Victor Foss and Ben Scrivens. Neither proved themselves in Anaheim and Los Angeles, respectively. This is just a mess. So fire your coach and then bring in another guy. Everyone thought Dallas Eakins was going to be the guy who actually coached, who actually got the nod for the Maple Leafs if they fired, what's his face? I can't think of his name. Whatever the hell his name is. Wow. It escapes me. Oh, Randy Carlyle. But so they thought that he was this big AHL guy and he was coaching Toronto's AHL team and everyone wanted to come up. Well, what? Give him 2-3 years. Get him a frickin' defense.
Yeah, that's definitely a little premature. That Oilers franchise is really unfortunate because they got a nice fan base there in Edmonton and they're dying for a good team, but it's just not happening anytime soon here. So, I did want to make one final note on your team before we move on to the next matchup, and that is the Sharks that you have, and Brent Burns, Logan Couture, and Joe Pavelski. It is a nightmare playing a team when you have. So the Sharks are usually the 10 o'clock game. So I might have a lead on you and a pretty commanding lead, but then you get to that Sharks game and it's and it happened to me this week, and it was every single time the Sharks scored a goal, you look down and two of your players are involved, and you just racked up like 25 points in the Sharks game, that's a daunting task.
There have been 3 separate occasions this year. They're all on the first power play where they each have had an assist to a Brent Burns goal. So it's a defenseman goal on the power play with 2 extra power play points.
It's like 1,000,000 points. It's out of control. So that was a daunting task. I consider myself fortunate to come away with a win. So once again, the final score: Talkers Book Service 166 to Todd Newken 157.6. Talkers Book Service up to 7-3. Todd Newken down to 8-2. Will this warrant a name change?
Yeah, always. So I have one in the holster. The jacked crash. It killed me. I wanted to go home and do my name change, and I figure I'll fire up a couple episodes on The Sopranos or on the Netflix or Amazon Prime, and boom, and a half hour later I woke up and I didn't know what was going on. I was nervous.
I do want to say though, here's the nice thing. Is, we each have the top 2 scores this week in the league. I think you still might be in first place.
I played McDonald auto goal this week.
So that's a huge game. I'm in third place, have the most points for. It's nice to be in a situation when we're doing these podcasts where we kind of our teams are successful, so I don't feel like an asshole suggesting certain things as it happened in the football league. As our teams were both in the basement and we're like, oh, you should start this guy and sit that guy. It's like, well, you suck, so we're not going to listen to you. So it is at least nice to be in a situation where, maybe we do have a touch of authority here to maybe make a lineup decision or two.
It's nice. The fact that both of our goalies led our teams too, it's nice because it's just those are just plug and plays. You don't even think about it. You just leave them, Yeah,
and those are each respectively our number ones on our team.
And look at from last week when we said that. Look at getting a little Lovejoy face on here, but last week it did. Christ, oof! But last week. We were kind of talking in the car about how the Blue Jackets weren't going to finish where they were, and then everything will kind of even itself out. Well, I'm not Nostradamus, but the Flames have lost 4 straight, and the Blue Jackets have won 6 straight. So
that process
everything.
Is underway.
Yeah,
and get ready for the Bruins to put some games together.
Exactly.
As well.
Yeah. So the Bruins had that shitty loss to Chicago. Apparently, I did not watch the game. I'm sad that I actually didn't because that probably would have been a good game to watch. But the Brew Crew. I'm assuming they're back in the they're still in 6th, 32 points. But here they're gonna come. It's not. I don't think anybody's concerned. I don't think anybody in their right mind thinks that the Cats are going to finish above the Bruins.
Yeah, and speaking of the Cats, and as you just pulled this up, I'm looking at their record. They're 12-8-8, 8 overtime or shootout losses. That's insane.
Can you win? They must have no skill.
It's nice getting a point there because in reality they're 12-16, but you pick up 8 extra points with that.
Yeah,
I don't know how many of those are shootout losses, but come on.
But in theory, you could be second in the division. No one's going to win every overtime game, but get 4 more points, and you're right there.
That's true.
That's a stinker.
So as far as my bet goes with Brent, come on, Brent, and that team doesn't stand a chance of making the playoffs. Get out of my face with that. But let's move on to the matchups here. The Odd Man Out versus the Real Deal Niels. The Odd Man Out. He stops the bleeding a little bit here with a big win over Robert Wright. The final score in this game, 114.9 to 101.5. Getzloff leading the way with 15 points for Ott. And Philip Kessel with 13.8 for the Real Deal Niels. Speaking of the Real Deal Niels, James Neal did get back under the goal column. Unfortunately, we mentioned, I don't know if we mentioned in the last podcast, it might have been just after because I was kind of blasting him a little bit. He ended up scoring the second empty net goal of the game in a 3-0 win, which pissed me off.
Do you know who they were playing?
I do not recall. They won the game 3-0, but then that kind of got him off the schneid a little bit, and he scored the following night. So he's sitting right now, I believe, with 11 goals. At least the last time I checked. They do need to update the message boards with that. But he is kind of getting back on track, and I believe he is still on pace now after those 2 goals to get 30. So I'm going to need him to regress a little bit more, but I have all the confidence in the world that will happen over in Nashville.
Yeah, I think we should go with the we can put up a poll that James Neal's goals should be worth 2 points and his assists should be worth 3. Because it's like that rare for him to pass the puck.
And I have a guy like that on my team. A guy picked up Matt Bolesky. He has like 13 goals and 2 assists.
Yeah, that guy doesn't. Oh yeah, he's just,
which is like hard to do actually. It's almost impressive.
You know who is? Then this was like just pathetic that I know this, but you know who else is really bad at that? Yuri Tolusti. This guy, he'll have 30 goals and but only like 38 points. It's like, if you just pass a little bit, you get paid a lot more. Like, you have 50 points, woo, whatever. But so moving down to Madonna autogoals and the Jonathan Quickies.
Yeah, and let's real quick, we'll give the updated standing. The odd man out gets his 3rd win of the season, and he was really sliding. I think he had lost 5 or 6 straight, so nice to see him back in the win column. And the real deal Neal's dropped down to 4 and 6. So yeah, now let's drop down to Madonna autogoal 95 versus the Jonathan Quickies, and Madonna autogoal keeps it going with the victory, 111 to 92.3 over Samuel Mendelson. Mendelson's been sliding a little bit as of late. He's lost 2 or 3 in a row. I actually need to grab his money for the fantasy league. I need to remind him one of these times. We see him like twice a day. Now that he's back in Pittsburgh for the holiday break. So you need to get the money off him. Top scorers for each team: Sam Mendelson, Shattenkirk with 17. He's a nice player. I do like him. And Frederick Anderson for Madonna autogoal, who keeps getting strong performances out of his netminders. He does have a Yaroslav Halak as well. Frederick Anderson's been a nice surprise, though, over in Anaheim this year. Mm-hmm. Remember, they started John Gibson in the first game against the Pens, and then I think maybe they thought that he was going to be the guy this year, and I know he's been banged up a little bit, but he kind of hasn't turned. He's just not ready yet, I don't think.
He's on IR, yeah. Well, they got rid of Hiller, and then they got rid of Foths, so they were kind of like, oh shit, like hopefully this Frederick Anderson guy pans out, and he kind of did. So I mean, kudos to them.
So I have a couple of notes for each of these respective teams. I've said the word respective so many times. I don't know why that keeps happening, but regardless, Madonna autogoal 95 was without Sidney Crosby this week. Obviously, he had the mumps that was diagnosed like 5 days late. We don't need to get in that whole situation, as it sounds like Bo Bennett might have got some kids at Children's Hospital killed.
What an ass.
But that's neither here nor there. I blame the Pens more than I blame Bo Bennett for that, but
I don't. If you feel sick, you shouldn't go around sick kids.
Well,
just seems like a common decency to me.
And while I agree with that, at the same time, it's like, if you're the Pens, mumps is going around your locker room. Don't be like sending them out to hospitals. That doesn't make any sense either. So I guess the onus is kind of on both of them. But also want to talk about another Penguin, and Jonathan Quickies has him, Patrick Hornquist. He was in and out of the lineup a little bit with an injury, but his fantasy value drops drastically without Crosby in the lineup. I mean, that kind of goes without saying, but
yeah, it kind of,
and that's like, since Sid's been out here a little bit, the Quickies points have been down because.
But what the Quickies did? They replaced they picked up Blake Simo,
and that's good. And Como's been a nice surprise, but at the same time, the way the Hornquist was trending.
Yeah.
Hard to beat those numbers. So,
well, the fall from grace is hard. The other shoe is going to drop at some point.
So Madonna autogoal up to 8 and 2. Jonathan Quickies down to 5 and 5. We'll now jump over to Goodnight Jim Kite versus the Wheeling Nailers. Goodnight Jim Kite getting the victory. Another team that we are always happy to see get under the win column. Ben and Talon.
Yeah.
Defeat Colin Fawcett, the final score in this one, and it was a tight one, 104.3 to 102.8. Colin Fawcett, he had changed his team name now twice. He was down from the Edmonton Oilers to the Wheeling Nailers. You wonder if the loss warrants a name change. It goes even lower than the Nailers, maybe like the South Point Rink Rats here pretty soon.
Yeah, B, right? Do they have B?
B is low, yes.
Okay, I never did this stuff, so I don't know. But,
yeah, you are right on.
Every time everybody always brings up, they're always like, "Oh, I played majors, midgets, and schmidgets and bantams," and I'm like, "What age is that?" And then it's like they couldn't have done it. The classifications any stupider.
No, because midget is
it's the oldest. It's like okay, well, like midget,
midget's above.
And like the funny, and we're allowed to say midget for hockey, but like if you say midget and it's not referred to hockey, like you get like
Well, as we saw in the NFL.
Yeah, like they send midgets to interview you. Right. It's crazy. They didn't even know. And then there's like bantam and squirt, like bantam, like makes me feel like you say that word. It's like bantam, and it's like
right.
that's like 10-year-olds.
Bantam sounds like it should be the oldest.
Oh, that's like, and then squirt somehow older than it's so effed. But so good for good night, Jim Kite. Yeah. Apparently they're just pouring vodka down people's throats. And they go from a 5 to a 7 or something.
I believe it was from a 6 to an 8.
6 to an 8. All right.
I did want to make one note. You did give me a little bit of a hard time when I went to look at Foligno and Ribeiro's numbers in the previous week, as those two guys were in the trade for Giroux. Foligno this week, 17.8. I believe he has 14 goals already this year, and Ribeiro had 8 points. So they were right up there for some of the top contributors for Goodnight Jim Kite and help propel them to a slim margin of victory this week.
It's sad that Mike Ribeiro is the best offensive player on the Nashville Predators. It
is what it is, but they actually do have a little bit more offense this year than they have had in years past between Ribeiro, Neal, Philippe Forsberg.
Which is like scary that they could even be competitive in the past.
That's true.
Makes you wonder.
I also wanted to
how high that GM is.
This just came across the screen here as I was thinking about it. Henrik Lundqvist, we talked a lot about that game on Sunday against Edmonton. He gets the shutout, gives them 21.7 points for the week, and that wins them the week on Sunday. In one of the last games that was to happen. So
fucking
huge for them. You of course would have appreciated it the other way around.
I could have taken a goal from somebody too.
And I actually see this name going across. Help me pronounce this name again so I can tell the story.
Johnny Gaudreau.
Gaudreau. So I went down to the Pens Flames game a couple of nights ago. Got student rush tickets.
Well, explain how you were duped.
So let's start there. So we went to pick up that day, and after pickup, I was on the phone, and I clicked into a Sidney Crosby off-ice interview because I was curious to see if he was playing that night. I told everybody, including you, that I'm not going down if Crosby's not playing. And that was when they were kind of debating, he's ill, does he have mumps, what's the deal?
He had mumps.
So I clicked the interview. His face is swollen, which I'm sure everybody's seen the picture.
Well, you showed me, and I was like, yeah, he has mumps. He looks like Quagmire from Family Guy. This is not like, it looks like he's stuffing chipmunks. Yeah.
But so Crosby, flat out, right in the interview says, yes, I'm good to go for tonight. I'm playing. So I'm like, okay, good. So I go home, I get rush tickets, and I take a little nap. I wake up from my nap a couple hours later, and all of a sudden, Crosby's not playing.
Crosby's out.
Fantastic.
Did you wake up to the news, or did you do a quick search on Twitter and
boom?
I
did, yeah. Like I was like, I actually woke up with the feeling like something
happened.
Yeah. So and I have rush tickets. So it's not like I have them on me where I can sell them. You have to go down and get them. So I'm like, whatever, let's just go.
We're doing it.
So I get to the game, and we were almost a little bit late. Like we walked down right after the national anthem.
You don't like that?
No, I usually like to get there, get settled. I usually like to watch warm-ups.
I like to watch warm-ups.
I like to get kind of the feel of how it's going to go. But at the same time, with all these Pens out, my enthusiasm just isn't that high.
It's good to hear.
I think
Everlong.
understandably.
It's good to hear Everlong down there, though.
They don't play it anymore.
That's true.
They don't play Everlong by the Foo Fighters anymore. And I am pissed about that.
They play like Timber.
Yeah.
So
we don't need to get into that. But back to the Gaudreau story. We walk into our row, and I'm sitting down, and within 5 seconds of sitting down, just the conversation behind me, they were saying something along the lines of, Johnny, he's always chewing on that mouth guard. And I looked out there, and I saw Johnny Gaudreau, and you instantly knew that the people behind you were like his parents and his family, and turned around a few seconds later and saw a bunch of Flames attire. So I was like, yeah, I'm dead on with this. He ends up scoring a goal, and they were all happy.
Right in front of you.
Yeah.
That was on your side.
Which was nice, and I was happy
great
for them.
For the family.
The parents, though, weren't the ones really talking about him. It was like the extended family, and I believe there were just, by coincidence, a couple of Flames fans sitting around them. And at one point, early in the third period, and there was a couple of young gentlemen sitting to my right who were Pens fans. I just overheard one of the guys turn around and say it like, he was like, dude, we're missing like 5 or 6 of our top players. So then I started listening into the conversation.
Like what was?
And it was like one of these Flames fans. It wasn't the parents of the kid. It was either one of the Flames fans or part of Gaudreau's family. I guess he had said like the Pens aren't good. And so that kind of this kid reacted to it by like being like, hey, we're without Crosby, Kunitz, Dupuis, Mata, Bortuzzo. I don't think Bort's played
No,
that night.
Bortuzzo played. Motto was out.
Bennett.
I mean, it's just a mess. The whole first line's out.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's guys out there that I don't even know playing for the Pens. So rightfully so, the kid felt the need to turn around and mention that. And the guy was kind of like, I know, but I mean, you guys have a good team in the East, but you guys wouldn't be able to compete in the West. And while I agree that the West is certainly stronger than the East, I think we're all in agreement with that. Don't fucking come into to Pittsburgh, into Consol Energy Center, and just fucking throw out shit like that. So of course, and he was like, oh, they wouldn't be able to compete with Anaheim or with Los Angeles.
Shit.
I think it's still good. It is.
Nice. All right. Nice. We'll click that.
So
you like seeing yourself when you tell stories. Sorry.
Yeah, even though you just completely interrupted mine.
Well, the fucking computer went down. I'm actually trying to think of a different team name, so go ahead.
So this guy's like, oh, the Pens aren't able to compete with the Ducks or the Kings. To which point I turned around. It was like we've beat them twice this year. Or each team once this year by 3 goals. I think we beat both of them. So I had to turn around because he specified those 2 teams. And
one was a shutout.
Yeah, and I just went through my head dude, we beat them. Now, certainly in a 7-game series, that would be a tough challenge for the Pens. I don't even know if they would be favored against either of them. So I kind of get the point, but don't, kind of unnecessary. And then he continued to talk and was like, well, Blake Como isn't going to, cut it if you guys want to win a cup this year. He's not a top 6 forward.
And this is, yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of understand it. And he's going on and on and on. This guy doesn't cut it. You need, one of his quotes was, you need 4 more Patrick Hornquist. And I just turned around and I was like, dude, we won the cup in 2009. We know what it takes. We know the kind of team you have to construct in order to win a cup. So get the hell out of here. The Flames have been the doormat of the NHL for a decade, and you fucking come in here and talk like that. And Marissa was kind of told me to chill out.
Oh,
and,
I was gonna say, did she?
Right, yeah, because I started getting a little bit heated, and this is more of a Revito move because you get in fights with fans all the time. I honestly never say anything. And a lot of times it's stupid Pens fans around you, but I don't really let that get to me. But this guy coming into Pittsburgh, making statements like that, and acting obviously I know that Blake Como as a top 6 forward is not ideal. He would be great in the bottom 6. I get that. I get that we're missing some parts, but also as the kid next to me mentioned, dude, we're missing a quarter of our team and a huge part of it. When you get all those guys back, this team looks completely different. And then we went on to win anyways, and he got up and left early after Klinkhammer busted up a Flames puck line. Thank you, Klinkhammer.
Clink the sink.
But yeah, so I thought that was a little interesting, Tim. But Goudreau's parents, though, as I mentioned, they were nice.
They were nice.
They were calm, and the mom was nervous all game.
As every mother always is.
And they were nice, but it was the people around them that kind of irked me a little bit. But I don't know. It was definitely watching that game kind of through their perspective was certainly different. But it made a Pens Flames entertaining.
Sutzy on the shorthanded. I picked him up this morning.
That's good. So now let's jump down to the final matchup, and it was Were Jokes. This team sucks versus Blake Wheeler. And look out, ladies and gentlemen, because here comes Were Joke. This team sucks. He wins for the 2nd week in a row, the 2nd consecutive upset for Big Brent Mansfield, as he wins this one by a final score of 125.1 to 117.9. That's a huge win.
It is
for Brent. Huge.
Now there's all these teams tied. He gets one more win this week, and it's you're there.
Well, you know what's encouraging? We now have 4 teams that are 3-7, and those are obviously all at the bottom. And we also have a team with 4 wins and a team with 5 wins. So there's over half the league within 2 games of each other. So it certainly makes it competitive. It's nice to see that we don't have a team that's 0-10, sitting in the basement. And this is what we've been telling Brent: let it play out, okay? Okay, brother, let this play out.
Closed door meeting. Yeah, seemed to work.
You have 23 weeks to pull your shit together. You get a couple of big wins here. You are absolutely back in the hunt. So a big win for him this week. And Boss, who was trending upward, and he, as of a couple of weeks ago, had one of the biggest win streaks in the league.
I want to say maybe 3 or 4 in a row or something 5 in a row.
Yeah, gets upset here. And Brent had the 3rd most points this week. That is noted as well with 125.1. For Big Brent. I didn't even know he had him. Joey Thornton for Big Brent. So the Sharks coming through this week in fantasy. Thornton with 16.8. And for Blake Wheeler, the top scorer, Muzzin from Los Angeles with 13.5. Jacob Muzzin. So a big win there for Brent. And anything else you want to add to this game?
No, I think Brent played it well. Perhaps like we were saying last week. Sometimes you can yell at players. Sometimes you
kind of have to know your team,
right? And he must have got under their skin just enough to piss them off to want to play better. And here they come, and here they are, and they're back.
They are back. So
they're back in the thick of it.
So let's take a look now at the standings. And as I was telling our last story, you changed your team name. Do you want to go ahead and explain that one to the league?
Courage the Cowardly Dog. It was like one of my favorite TV shows ever.
Are you sure it was Courage?
Yeah, Courage the Cowardly Dog.
I'm not familiar with that.
It's like it's a pun on itself. Get it? Like Courage the Cowardly, like anything. Yeah. So, but it was a really good TV show, and I remember I had to write a paper for Miss Hamilton freshman year in English class at Peters Township High School, honors English. That was the only year I ever took anything honors, and she had you had to talk about our favorite TV show, and she thought it was a joke, and I was like, no, literally, this is probably my top 3 TV shows of all time. It's really freaking good. It's from the perspective of a dog, and it only people never it's way over the kids' heads when you're watching it.
Of course.
But it's only from the perspective of the dog, and the dog the only thing the dog does is protect the grandmother and the grandfather, and everything else is through the eyes of a dog, how a dog would react to things. It's a hell of a show. People always say SpongeBob SquarePants is one of the best psychological shows ever because every single person has one personality and they don't deviate from it ever. And that's how more or less a lot of schizophrenics have been based off of SpongeBob SquarePants the show, and you can explain a lot of psychological disorders from that. But Courage the Cowardly Dog was it was before its time. It was great. It's the Brave Little Toaster.
That went on entirely too long.
Okay.
But
well,
nonetheless,
it's Christmas season. So
he literally just took the picture of him with this dog, which he found sitting on the floor in my basement. So
that kind of reminded me of the conversation I had.
He's
recently.
getting a little emotional on us over here.
We are. So let's do since it's Christmas season, and we'll give our last little segment. Your 3 favorite Christmas movies.
I honestly probably couldn't name 3 Christmas movies to you that I've watched. We watched Christmas. Well, actually, the 2 I can name 2 that I will probably watch every year. Christmas Vacation, obviously, and I actually like Elf.
You're an Elf guy.
I am an Elf guy.
It doesn't wear out its welcome with you, or it's.
You know what? I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it in a while. Christmas Vacation definitely does not. Elf might if you watch it too much, but once a year around Christmas time, that's fair. Another thing that I will always watch, or have, I think the past 2 years, was the episode of The League, where it's over Christmas time. You were singing the song earlier, Merry Xmas.
Yeah.
Christmas.
Xmas is my favorite time of the year.
Yeah. So I'll probably fire up that episode here over the next few days
that's good.
And it kind of gets me feeling in the Christmas spirit. How about yourself?
Home Alone 1. Home Alone 2, and my dad and I, Christmas Day, or Christmas Eve, taking out the presents for everybody, because my mom's a gimp and doesn't, want to help, I guess. So we have to set everything up for ourselves. We watch Black and White, starring Alistair McKenzie, Scrooge. Black and white, it is, it's crazy how old school this thing is. The tape, you can the tape's cracking.
You know what? And I heard music on the radio just like that the other day. That's obviously a little novelty that you enjoy, but I'm can we get some updated music? There's a million versions of every song. Do we need to get this thing sounded like it was recorded in the 1800s. It sounded terrible.
It was coming through a megaphone.
Yeah, you could hear the crackling in the background. It was really distracting. I couldn't even enjoy the song.
He was disturbed.
So let's take a look real quick here. A couple of ththings I want to get to before we sign off. Of course, let's give them the updated standings. Courage the Cowardly Dog still with the number 1 overall spot at 8-2. Madonna Autogol 95 at 8-2. Talkett's Book Service stands alone at 7-3. Blake Wheeler in 4th at 6-4. Jonathan Quickie's 5-5. Real Deal Neal's 4-6. Then we have 4 teams tied at the bottom of the standings, all at 3-7. Those teams are We're a Joke. This team sucks, and I don't think you can change that name after 2 wins. The Odd Man Out, the Wheeling Nailers, and Goodnight Jim Kite. So those guys are all clumped at the bottom. Maybe we'll see a little bit of separation this week. as it's hard to believe we're already 10 weeks in. So real quickly as well, I do want to jump just to the Week 11 matchups. Talk's Book Service versus the Real Deal Neils. It appears Yarmer Yager has already gotten on the board for Robbie Wright. Madonna Autogol 95 versus Courage the Cowardly Dog. You had mentioned Brandon Sutter, excuse me, too many of those guys. Already with a shorthanded goal. Wheeling Nailers versus the Op Man Out. Blake Wheeler versus the Jonathan Quickies. And We're a Joke, This Team Sucks versus Goodnight Jim Kite. So,
what is Merrick? Does Merrick Licky already have 2 goals for the Nailers?
He must already.
8.3 points. Yeah, that's definitely more than a goal.
And an interesting note as I look over these 2 of these final 3 games here, you have Wheeling Nailers versus the Op Man Out. They're both 3-7, and then We're a Joke, This Team Sucks versus Goodnight Jim Kite. They're both 3-7. So, we'll have a couple of 2 of those teams bump up to 4 wins. 11 games through, and 2 of them will stay at 3, and that's that might be enough to kind of propel the 2 winners back into a little bit of playoff talk. So
who would have it was weird at the beginning of the year. You had a feeling it was going to come down to We're a Joke, This Team Sucks versus the kids who live in the rat cave up at Cal. Goodnight Jim Kite.
You still need to make a trip up there. That place is terrible. The home of Ben Zaleski and Talon Stroman.
I received a few Snapchats on Saturday night before we all headed down to the Buckheads, and where Ben was sitting versus like the television, it was pitch black. Like get some.
They have no lights in the family room. None. That
explains it then. It was as you couldn't see your hand in front of your own freaking face.
Yeah, they don't even put a TV in there. I mean, it's bad.
There was a television though, I think. Oh, I mean, he took a Snapchat. Maybe it was a laptop. I don't know. I don't really remember. I just remember being like, that looks. I was actually scared for him. No, and there's a rat hole. We're pretty sure there's a hole.
Yeah, there's a rat hole in the basement. Yeah. I mean, it's just a real. I mean, kind of the aura you get when you step in the house. It's not a good feeling.
Like you almost feel like you're gonna get mumps.
Yeah.
Any bowl.
Yeah. It's you definitely don't feel safe. I wouldn't spend one night in that place.
You would not.
If I had my druthers. So
Talon, if you're out there, we'd like you to shoot us a tweet about how your back is doing. We
want to hear from Talon about the back. I also want to hear about Ben keeps referencing the heater in the house or like the thermos. There's Ben always describes noise as like a metal bat hitting off a pipe that just repetitively goes off, usually in the middle of the night. So we did want to get an update on that. I also heard they were a little bit behind paying their bills, which is just great.
They don't even pay them.
Yeah, I mean, Ben's asking my dad for money. He's like, "Oh, we're a week late." I'm like, "Ben, that's just fantastic."
When someone else is paying your bills, you should always pay them on time. For the person who's paying.
Right, yeah. There's really no excuse to be late for that.
Why aren't they just mailing those bills back here? You can forward them elsewhere. Cut out the middlemen. Ben and Talon, you're the middlemen.
So to wrap it up here, we both took off the podcast pick'em last week. Not that we forgot about it, which we may or may not have, but we really just needed a week off to kind of regroup because we have been terrible. If you actually know a sports book out there, I would probably suggest fading us from here on out. You will probably be a very rich man.
That is true.
We're going to give this another shot here, and we're going to do it with the games tomorrow, December 16th, Tuesday night. There is a ton of games tomorrow night, so a heavy night of action. Almost too much to look up and down these games. I believe you did pick first last.
Yeah, we don't have a guest this week, unfortunately. Remember the last time?
Yeah, well, I was kind of sick of Boss coming right in and showing us up, which I think he actually might have done.
He probably did. Yeah, he picked the Bruins. That's not an underdog. I don't care who the Bruins are. They should never be underdogs. But anyways, okay.
Well, and they're underdogs tomorrow night at Nashville, which is an interesting pick. Another interesting pick, I see the Kings are underdogs as well at St. Louis. But you just said it, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to take the Boston Bruins, who will be about plus 125 at Nashville tomorrow evening, 8:05 Eastern Standard Time. Your pick?
I will take... Oh, the Blue Jackets keep rolling. Blue Jackets winning at Detroit.
And Detroit's a team, and they got off to a hot start. I think we're both in agreement at some point they're going to have to regress.
Yeah, when Glenn Denning is playing 22 minutes a game.
Yeah, and
you're having issues.
I think you're the one that told me that Babcock came out this week and said this was the best Red Wings team since the Cup teams. And since then they've lost a few games. I don't know if that statement's 100% necessary to come out and make. That kind of puts a little bit of unnecessary pressure on your team.
Yeah, I'd almost be like pump the brakes. We don't
like
if you
we're
look
25 games into a regular season where teams are still figuring out other teams. Like I don't know if that's it was appropriate.
That team they had was so loaded.
Yeah,
I mean, loaded.
Especially if you just even consider the Datsuk and Zetterberg, and
everyone
they
was
were back
healthy.
in their primes,
and everyone was really
Lidstrom
healthy.
Was still playing.
Yeah,
healthy.
I mean, Darren Helm. They had everybody on those freaking teams.
Yeah, so I mean,
that was Valtteri Filppula. All these players were so good.
But so that'll about do it here for the week 10.
Is this the old recap versus theme song?
This is the old NHL on versus theme. I was trying to pick one that
I'm Joe Micheletti. He scores, and we're headed to overtime.
So there's that week 10 recap in the books. Best of luck to everybody in week 11. Once again, Eric Selesky, Austin Revito with you. Signing off.
Courage says, let's go Pens.
Have a good night.